questions, but since two of the largest mobile companies started funds, and application development obviously it was in existence, and others just felt that they could take that as a stepping stone for their business venture. Where is startup activity happening now? Is it in software development? Do you see a lot in application development? And we're interested. We had the app track to follow because we're seeing a lot of not only there but around the world applications being developed and business models being created around these. And I'm interested to hear from the rest of the panel, what is going on? Are they, because they're funding those types of startups, that those startups are, or if they fall in their world, will get the funding first, therefore they can pursue a business model ahead of others? But I'm interested to hear from the group and also about business models around the applications, because there seems to be a lot of activity, specifically in the mobile world.
Let me start off. It is no accident that many of the startups coming out of the Philippines is in software. Software is very non-capital intensive. It doesn't cost too much money to put together an app. It's a lot of it is just labor. You don't deal with much equipment. So even in the US, you'll see it in Silicon Valley, a lot of the activity is in software. So what that does for the Philippines is it allows them to go in with the trend. Okay, so they're not out of the very few startups in Silicon Valley that are in hardware are being funded these days. Very little outside of what DADO funds are funded in semiconductor. Even clean tech is very expensive. So there is a special niche for software companies, and we tend to be very good at in software. We recall some of the hackers in the past that were Filipinos. They knew how to make viruses, if you recall, and so we're good at that. It's a very socially intensive work because they tend to like to work together in software. And they do it through social networking is not an accident. It happened because there's a lot of social aspects to it. So, and it works for also because software businesses tend to be high margin operations. And then there are also cheap ways of marketing. What are the cheap ways of marketing? If you can get it viral, you're on your way. And so your capital, your marketing expenditures are not going to be very high. So they tend to be high profit margin items. So you got all of these forces going in the same direction, and it just points to winners. So there is no reason, there is no reason why it won't succeed in the Philippines as it is in the US.
Yeah, we're also looking at a time where the mobile devices really become the real vision of the personal computer that we had before. We wanted to create something that was really personal, but the mobile devices and the tablets are like giving you direct access to everything that you want to experience. Which, on the other hand, for us, the startups, it's giving us an opportunity to really cater to different niches with really specialized solutions towards the needs that are out there. And we're able to address those needs in manners that because we have a lot of inefficient systems. I mean, why should I order a taxi by picking up the phone? Why shouldn't I see my driver, have a personal connection with him? He arrives and he picks me up. And when we start looking at it from the aspect of not what the technology can do, but what problems are out there, what can we solve and do more efficiently, that's where we can make the real brainstorming start. And in places that are not in Silicon Valley, but somewhere else, where you're facing a lot of opportunities for making things better and more efficiently, that's where you come up with a really neat idea. So I think a place like the Philippines is in a unique position to use that place as a testing ground to figure out smarter ways of doing things. I mean, like, you don't build a phone system from scratch, you go directly to a really innovative solution, and you don't put wires in the ground, you get the mobile phones, etc., etc. So this is where I see a really exciting field for the Philippines.
in terms of apps, the apps in the Philippines is very new. Why? Because I talked with all the phone manufacturers. It's very new. Nobody has really thought of a lot of applications yet. So a lot of teams now are around the vendors like Lenovo, the Chinese vendors, the Korean vendors. They're just creating apps for their phones. So if you talk with the telco just stopped selling dumb phones a few weeks ago. So, so it will be a smartphone, and the apps will be provided by the hardware vendors. So that's as of now. That's what I see.
I think I just want to add one thing. I think would not want to see in the Philippine startup ecosystem are companies trying to solve anti-problems, problems that don't exist.
Right.
A better Candy Crush, would be one example. I think we're still a third world country, it's a developing economy. I think the best engineering talent should be utilized to solve real world problems, utilizing software, maybe hopefully utilizing hardware as well. But I think what I'm seeing in the Valley is kind of now an awakening that the best minds in the world are solving problems that don't exist, right? Right, they're solving anti-problems, I think in the Philippines, I'd like to see the talent there focused on solving really hard problems that exist for the 100 million people that live there.
I'm back. I just found out I'm supposed to contribute. So let's use this panel of talent to do a real app strategy. And so I was thinking, Angela reminded me, you're supposed to be up there. I thought, if it's okay with Caliber, let's figure out how you beat Oracle. Using technology app strategy or corporate structuring, Denny, or unfair local regulatory advantage by teaming up with government policy. So Paul, yeah, your enemy is Oracle.
One of them.
Yes. So we'll. Does anyone here work for Oracle?
Does he want Google?
So let's explore that, and then I'll work with you through this brainstorming.
Sure.
So how do you need to beat Oracle?
We need to beat Oracle at their own game. Last year, they purchased a company called Taleo for $1.9 billion. Taleo is embedded in the application and recruiting funnels of companies like Accenture and Convergys, IBM. What Taleo is a resume management system. What we want to be able to do is replace a resume management system with a skills validation system that allows people to, instead of applying for jobs with a resume, qualifying for jobs with their skills.
Let me share with you some of the lessons that I learned early on in Silicon Valley when I sat on some of Dado's boards as a VC. And he was never afraid of fighting directly with big companies like Intel, Motorola, and other mega chip corporations. Because is he still here?
No, yeah.
Dado used to tell me that he was smarter than those guys. And I said, okay. So one approach is to have the confidence in your heart that you can beat the big guys. And this is true. So the message I want to share, not just with Caliber, but all the Filipino entrepreneurs who have this brash confidence to, go for the brass ring, okay? So for example, one strategy that Danny and I had used to coerce acquisition, we talked about this, is if you can invent what Oracle needs so that you can block them, And so as I was looking at your presentation earlier, architecturally, upstream or downstream from your layer of service, it looked like you can have synergy even before recruiting through the educational process. So your algorithm for training people is actually part of the educational process. So that's integrated into curriculum in some way. That's preempted. Okay, so that allows you to render Telios relevant. Also, after that, once an employee is hired into an organization, if the same approach is integrated seamlessly for employee training, right? Anyway, so this gives you an idea strategically through intellectual property positioning, how you could own the ecosystem, that people like to call it.
When should we explore that?
All right. When we coach startups, we tell them to start staking these strategic advantages even before you code. So you start filing patents early. You say, look, we invented these strategic hooks. Okay. Anyway, Danny, any comments on that?
I just wanted to add, because I love the example of Facebook and Instagram, because Facebook had billions of users, obviously, and they're very good at engaging people. At the same time, they were having a lot of trouble with photo sharing. I mean, they were putting photos out there, you could share your photos, but the crowd that was using that wasn't really engaged. Then Instagram, they figured out a way to make the crowd interested in sharing those photos on a completely different level and on a social level. And I think the flexibility that companies like yours have is to really listen to the customer and adjust to them and motivate them in a completely different manner than a huge beast of a company can do with all of their, pros and cons.
Let me just add to what you just said. I think there's an alternative strategy that one can make. You said go head on. Another strategy probably is to find a way to work with these guys, because that's a good exit in itself. You see all these companies that are gobbled up by Google and Facebook, etc., Instagram, for example. People think that they got bought out because, Facebook or Google discovered them. Actually, they've been working, if you dig into the history, these guys have been working together on very difficult problems. Because the advantage that the startup has is they can move fast, and sometimes they have better engineering talent than those big guys out there. So sometimes a good strategy is to work with them and help them solve the big problems. And that will guarantee you an exit at some point in time. So when you see somebody buying and acquiring a startup, that's because they've been working together. It's not a surprise. That's one way to get an exit, in other words. And it's not a bad strategy.
So years ago, I was involved in chip design software in Silicon Valley. So my engineering training was doing design tools for designing chips. And it was islands of automation that became integrated, so you could do very complicated chips today, like what that is. And at the time, one of the strategies was similar to what Danny was describing just now, which is how do you complement and then work with the existing tools that are out there. One of the things you could do strategically, and I'm just thinking as Danny was talking, is to be like a multi-source that is compatible with them, but maybe in a different market demographic, or so it's complementary. My guess is the training for helping companies evaluate and train candidates is very domain specific. Okay, so the nurse training is very different than what you would do for, let's say, paralegal training. And so you could accumulate a library of highly specialized training kits. Okay, and over time, you would become acquirable because you had these competitive advantages.
I've always wanted to see a service where you could speak to people in the same position that you're applying for. like real people that have actually gone through the process through a chat thing or whatever, and for me to be able to directly get